Hey everybody, in the beginning, on my journey throughout the years to replace the tent with a hammock, I learned very quickly of the challenges when it came to setting up at camp. Not so much the hammock, but the tarp over the top of it. One of the greatest challenges is the ridgeline. Not only to set it up, but how to attach it to the tarp. Over the years, I've had this progression from the beginning to where I am now, the different types of ridgelines that I have used. In this episode, I'd like to share with you the 3 different types of ridgelines I've used over the years from the beginning to where I am now that helped me to replace the tent with a hammock, and I'm hoping it will do the same for you. When I started out, I didn't want to spend a lot of money to check out this hammock thing. So the first ridgeline we're going to look at is the one I started out with, is a continuous ridgeline. For you guys that don't want to spend a lot of money investing in this hammock thing, this is a good ridgeline to try out before you ditch that tent. First, of course, you're going to need a tarp. And you can get one of those cheap poly tarps, and they would work well at the beginning. And you're also going to need some inexpensive cordage like paracord, in a length about 25 feet, 7 meters. You first tie a loop on the end. I like to use just an overhand knot to make a loop. Then you wrap it around the tree to the height of where you want that tarp to be hung. Then feed the other end all the way through that loop. And tighten around the tree. Then you go to the other tree and wrap around it. Now you can use any type of knot you'd like. It really doesn't matter which one. But what I like to use is a knot called a trucker's hitch. And I find it to be very effective on cinching down to tighten that ridgeline to make it very taut. To make a trucker's hitch on the second tree, now after wrapping the cordage around the tree, put the loose end underneath your arm and give it a little slack to work with. You make a loop by crossing it over itself and lie it right on that cordage. Reach down and pull that cordage through the loop to form another loop. Now take that cordage around the tree and move it to the height that you would like to match the other side, while always holding on to that loop. Otherwise it will come undone. Put that loose tag through the loop and pull it tightly. Use your non-dominant hand to pinch the cordage against the loop of the slip knot. Then use your free hand to grab a loop of cord. Make sure you leave some slack between the loop and the slip knot. Now cross the loop over the strands and wrap it under and back up through the slack. Then pull it tight to cinch it against the knot. With the ridgeline set up, now we gotta find an inexpensive way to attach the tarp to this ridgeline. So what you wanna do is get 2 pieces of cordage that are 8 inches or 20 centimeters in length. You'd want it in a smaller diameter. Half of the diameter would be perfect, but use what you have. Tie the 2 ends together to form a loop. I like to use just a simple overhand knot to tie those loops. And when you cut those tag ends on any cordage, make sure you burn it. It helps the knot from coming undone. So you take those 2 loops and you want to put 1 on each end and tie in a Persket knot. And to do that, all you do is you lie that loop you made over the ridgeline to form 2 loops. Pull one side through the other 3 times. Then pull it tight and push it together to form an even knot. With the Persic knot, you can slide it up and down the ridgeline freely. But when you pull on that loop, it snugs and holds it tight and it will not move. After you tied one Persic knot, slide it down to the end and tie another on the other end. Next, you get 2 carabiners. I like to use the small ones, but you can use any size you want, and you can find them in most department stores. You take it and you snap it onto the Persic knot. Then put one on the other side too, don't forget that. Next, you take the tarp and throw it over the ridgeline. In most cases, I'd use a longer and wider tarp. For this demonstration, I'm going to use this inexpensive poly tarp, which would work also. So what you do next is you find that grommets on the end and you snap those carabiners to them and then tighten it down. Slide it up. That is not coming undone. Now slide those Persic knots away from the tarp to tighten it down. This tarp is not going to come undone. It's attached securely to this ridgeline. You buy one of those cheap poly tarps and you find out there's no grommet in the middle end to hook up the carabiner to. Now what do? Well, you just simply get 2 pieces of cordage that are 12 inches, 30 centimeters in length. Then you tie a loop on each end and find yourself 2 small stones. First, you take the end where there's no grommet on the tarp and you take that small stone, you put it underneath the tarp and you ball it up. Take the cordage with the 2 loops on the end and put one through the other. And take that loop that is formed, put it over and around the bottom of the stone. Then pull the other end tight to lasso it. Take the carabiner that is attached to the Persic knot and snap it on the other loop on the cordage and slide that Persic knot away to tighten. This will hold the poly tarp securely to the ridgeline, and you don't have to worry about that material tearing or ripping because it will not, it won't damage it. And this way, and if it does, it's just a cheap tarp, so don't be cheap. Cheap, 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 cheap. Now the second ridgeline that I changed up to after using this style, it's still a continuous ridgeline, but with hardware, which brought the weight and the bulk down dramatically. And it's made out of 1.75 yellow zingot or gray latchet with a length of 35 feet, 10 meters. It has a small titanium clip called a Dutch hook, and it's attached to only one end. The other end has a gizmo or hardware called the Wasp. That can be slid up and down the ridgeline. To tighten it down, you wrap the zinget underneath, up and around the back tail, and that will securely hold it. To set up this type of ridgeline, you take the end with the Dutch hook and wrap it around the tree and clip the Dutch hook to the latchet. Then take the other end and wrap the ridgeline around the tree and bring it to the Wasp. Bring the latchet around to the bottom hook on the front of the Wasp. Slide away from the tarp to tighten it down. Bring it up and over the front of the antenna. Bring it around under the wing, and this will hold everything nice and tight, and the ridgeline will now be taut. But instead of using a Persic knot, I used what is called a Tato tarp connector. You take the Tato connector and push down on one end of the T and slide it through the grommet, the D-ring. And then pull that T back up. Now this will hold the tarp in place. Now you can take this tarp and slide it up and down the ridgeline with those Tato connectors, and when you're ready to secure it, you take the hook of the Tato connector and wrap it under and over the ridgeline. This will hold it secure. And 2 pieces of gear I have on all my tarps is a double end stuff sack that will stay on the ridgeline when I hook it up. Another piece of gear that I use is snakeskin. That just holds the tarp right in these mesh bags. And to unleash it, you pull each end of the snakeskin and that will open up the tarp. And this works really great for setting up and taking down in windy conditions. Now for the third ridgeline, the one that I use most of the time. It's not a continuous ridgeline, but 2 separate ones on each end, a suspension. And I use this one more than the other ones because it shapes the tarp a little bit better and it's easier to line and adjust over the hammock. They are 2 sections of zinc 20 feet, 7 meters in length with a gizmo or piece of gear called a stinger that is tied on one end. So when it comes to setting it up, I'll take one end and hook it up to a tree. I will then snap the stinger to the tarp. I'll then take the other stinger, snap it to the tarp, and wrap it around the second tree, keeping the tarp, which is in the snakeskin, off the ground, and attach it to the stinger and tighten it up. To use the stinger, you just put the cordage through the hook and pull the suspension tight. Then wrap it around the front under the antenna and bring it around, then under the wing, which will hold the ridgeline secure. Now over the years, I've had people tell me that after they set up that tarp so tight and it's time to take it down and they go to undo that stinger with that cordage underneath the wing, it just won't come undone. And the easiest way I found to undo it is to wrap that cordage around your hand and then pull it straight out, not underneath it, but straight out, and then slowly swing it underneath the wing, and I'll pop it every time. Boom! Like I said earlier, you really want to use these double-end stuff sack. It makes setting up and taking down so much easier. But with these Cuban fiber Dyneema tarps, they don't work so well in those double-end stuff sacks. You got to use a regular stuff sack. And it's such a pain to get in here. And it takes longer, and taking down is, man, I wish I could get this Cuban fiber tarp in that double-end stuff sack instead of this regular stuff sack. There's gotta be a better way. Come on, man! Now another tip I like to share with you, when you're using these stingers, put them in a little baggie and keep both of them together, seal it up, and then I like to put them inside my stuff sack where the tarp is stored. Seal it up. This way you will always have them together, you'll never forget them. It's like 2 peas in a pod. You thought I was gonna drop it, didn't you? Ah! Now these are the 3 ridgelines I've used on my journey over the years, with the stinger being my favorite. But there's a new style or type of ridgeline that's coming out that might replace that stinger, so stay tuned. Well, this ends this episode. If you like this video, please hit that like button down below. It really does help the channel. And if you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button down below and that little bell icon up there in the corner, and that'll notify you when the next episode comes out. And if you have any questions or comments, please write them down below. I'd love to hear from you. This is the Marine. Thank you for watching, and God bless.
Appalachian sunrise meets my skin. Even with my eyes still closed, I can feel it coming in. Golden, golden, I'll follow only golden, 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 golden things.
Bye-bye.